Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Conversational Witchcraft with me, Dawn the Kitchen Witch. I'm really happy today to introduce on this show for the first time SM Harlow. She discovered her love of wildcraft over 2 decades ago. Her calling for the craft began when she was just a young girl around the age of 11 among the trees and the wind. She found great peace and connection with herbs and how they brought magic into everyday mundane. Tea was a gift given to her by a master who taught her how spirituality and healing is found within its brewed depths. As a writer of her new book, Tea Witchery, which actually I have under Tea Witch's Grimoire, which is awesome. She hopes to give the world some passion and inspiration that was so humbly bestowed upon her. When she's not writing, she is studying to become a doctor of traditional naturopathy. Um, Thank you for being here. May I call you Susanna?
Yes, hi.
Hi. Hi. And in preparation for today's interview, I also have a cup of tea.
That's so lovely. What is it? I'm so
So,
curious.
so it's not my own brew. I do make some of my own tea from, here
That's
on
beautiful.
and on. But this is from a company. I'm out here on the East Coast, and this woman, she's wonderful. Her name is Stacy, and she's out of Connecticut, and she's got a company called Whole Harmony Teas. And I am drinking her headache relief tea.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
it's really wonderful. I'm not even sure what's in it, but it fucking works. And with
Ah,
with a lot of honey, obviously.
obviously, usually it sweetens the deal and finds the intentions.
It sure does. It sure does. So welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to have you because I feel like you're a tea witch and I'm a kitchen witch, and that makes us kindred, you know?
Yeah. Pretty much cousins.
I mean, I'm just looking at your beautiful kitchen behind you with all of your mugs and everything. And I'm like, oh, I love that she has her mugs out because mine are all in this cabinet behind me. And mugs are really important, are they not?
Yes, they are your trusted friends.
I have a mug addiction.
I
I
feel that.
really do you really like do you have like a favorite, or do you have a favorite that goes like, for me, it's every season. I have a different seasonal favorite mug.
Yes, actually, I'm happy you bring that up because it is kind of ever shifting, depending on your mood, your needs, which one calls to you. Like a while ago, I don't know if you can see it, but
Oh yeah.
there's this one on the edge here that has a skeleton person walking a skeleton dog.
It's
And for the
hilarious.
longest, that was my mug that like I needed because I was healing from the loss of my dog. So it was
Oh,
kind of like a bit of a healing journey, but yes. And yeah, but you're right. It does shift and you can't see over here, but there's all of my teacups, like my actual fancy teacups. And there's one that has like a little oracle crystal ball, and that one has been my go-to here lately.
it's fantastic. I literally have like, I don't have little beautiful gorgeous like teacups and saucers as I'm sure you have. I'm not delicate enough of a human being to be trusted with those things. But I love mugs, and I'm really particular about my mugs. They have to be a certain ounce, they have to hold a certain volume, they have to
Mhm,
feel nice on how you
mhm.
hold them, right? Like the handle needs to be a certain thickness. I've got to be able, so this one is not, these are not my favorite. But you have to be able to hug it. You have to hug a mug. This is very
Yes,
important. And I always thought this was just my mental crazy particular OCD-ness. But really there's a lot of magic and energy work because these are like our little mini portable cauldrons.
exactly. Exactly. I have that actually stated exactly in my book where when you come to your tea, which is tools, the mug itself or your teapot, depending on which one you prefer, that is your vessel, your magical cauldron, that creates your intentions into reality. So, exactly.
Right. And you're brewing either in the cup or in the teapot. And just like for me in the stirring, like I'm stirring in my intention. I'm drawing symbols and my intentions into my
Yeah.
tea, right? And then I'm literally putting that in my body, like we don't generally
Yeah.
uh think about that when we're like burning incense or whatever in a little cauldron on an altar or something, that I'm going to put that in my body, but you are,
Hmm.
when you're working in this type of a spiritual path, right? I feel like we're putting the
Exactly.
cart way before the horse and talking about like, you know what I mean? Like, let's figure out who are you? Let's find out about you. Let's find out about your journey. Cause I love in your bio how you said you came to Wildcraft. What does that term wildcraft mean for you?
Essentially, getting lost in nature, letting
Mhm.
nature guide you, letting it be your path, letting it be the way where you can truly find yourself, your absolute wild essence that is you. And a lot of my bio actually does describe exactly who I am and where I came from, because it started off as a child. I was like a little wild mushroom gremlin just running around, not the woods, but any basically kind of outdoors opportunity parks. I grew up in the city, so all I craved was just to be out in nature, away from all that hustle and bustle and cars and gas and fumes and stuff.
Yeah.
So any chance I could, I was in a garden, I was in a park, I was sitting next to a tree, the one tree that's in my backyard, that I became great friends with. And
Yeah.
being out there, being able to just be quiet and be away from everything and just truly listen to the world around you, to the dirt, to the roots, to the wind, to like the sky above and the ground below. It just I really was able to truly find who I am and what it is that I truly connect most to,
Even
which
as a
was
child, like being that young, you had that
uh,
clarity. Wow.
I was probably about 9 to 10 years old when I really was able to kind of, not too much supervision, I guess you would say, where they were like, okay, she's fine to be outside, playing
Right.
in the mud. That's okay. So like to actually be able to be by myself and to enjoy that little taste of freedom. Yes, and having my grandmother be there to help raise me in the times that she could. She was also a very deeply spiritual religious woman, and her faith was very much connected to her kitchen, to the lives around her. And if it was something that someone else needed, she was there to make it and to bring that to that person, to bring that love and that healing to them. And she did that a lot for me because, like I said, I was a little wild gremlin and I got hurt a lot. So she was always there healing me, teaching me, and I learned a lot from her, and she inspired a lot of that need to connect to myself, to the world around me, to my heart and my love. And I took that with me moving forward. And I probably was about 11 years old. I wasn't probably, I was 11 years old when I got my first taste of what witchcraft is. You
Mm.
know, I used to go hide away in the library and find all books on the subject. And because it was like a calling that most everyone knows that feeling, that calling. Come find me, come learn about me. This is who you are. It was basically like that. And I learned a lot over those years and practiced a lot, different types of methods, different types of crafts, just whatever called to me, what felt right to me. But it probably wasn't until I was 17 and I started working at a metaphysical store. And again, instead of a little wild goblin, I was like a little little hermit in the back room making all of the different types of incense and magical powders and oils and candles. So that was part of my mentorship. I was having to learn. all of the magical recipes and
Mm.
how to put them together with intention and, of this as part of the practice. So it was there that I really got to connect a lot with all of the herbs before me.
Mhm.
Like I learned a lot that my intuitive, I guess you could call it, my empathic, intuitive nature,
Mhm.
I guess is the best way to put it. That they almost spoke to me. I connected with them. I knew which ones blended well together,
Yeah.
and that passion grew from there. I was just like, yeah, I'm an herbal witch. I'm like, what would you call it? I'm a nature witch, or yeah,
Right.
I'm not one for titles, but
Right.
it just felt right. And after working there, I started working at a acupuncturist,
Oh,
not really
wow.
clinic, but yeah, I worked with an acupuncturist, and um, she worked her acupuncture clinic, but it was also a tea room at the same time. So it was like a two-in-one.
Oh, wow.
And yes, it was awesome. It was a
That's
beautiful
really
place.
cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, and that's where I met my tea master. They were partnered together, and he came from generations of tea masters who grew tea, who moved about and just learned all of its history. So being there, having to work there practically as an apprentice, I had to learn and respect the history and the customs and how to go about all things tea, and it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful to see his passion for it
Yeah.
and to feel it and understand it and see how it really does truly connect to people, how it can heal them both mind, body, and spiritually, So
Mhm.
that it was there where it was basically like a something clicked, you know,
Mhm.
where yeah, this is this is a part of me. This almost is like a full circle where everything that I learned from my grandmother to the metaphysical store to right then and there, it was something that I loved. And especially when I had to serve it to clients who all came with different needs, whether it was to find healing, maintain their health, find balance, maintain that balance, clarity, the witch in me was like, this is what they need. Let me brew it for them.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's kind of
Absolutely.
how
I
it went
get that.
about.
I totally get that. Like there'll be times where I have a friend over and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm dealing with this, this, and this." And I'm like, "Well, let's sit down. Let me make you a brew. Let me
Mm-hmm.
let me
Mm-hmm.
make you something, whether it is food or tea or coffee, whatever. Like, let me make you something that's gonna soothe or enliven or
Yeah.
whatever." But I want to go back. You thank you for sharing that, like the whole story. But there's a couple points in there, like I want to go back to and explore a little more. Like you said that around the age of 11, you were like hiding in libraries and reading all that you could read about witchcraft, right? First of all, was there one particular book that you found that really resonated with you at that age that made you go, "Oh my God, I'm a witch"? And then also, like, how from that point into your adolescence did that affect, your outlook and the way you related to people and the way you related to earth and nature? And at that point, were you still living in the city or were you out in nature at this point? Like all of those questions around that particular time.
Okay. Well, I was still in the city. Yes. I was in the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles. Let's get that picture. So,
Wow.
yes. Yes.
And now
So,
you're in the
I
South,
always,
right? You're in the South now?
mm-hmm,
Wow.
mm-hmm.
What a culture shock. You love
Honestly,
it.
yes. Like when my husband first brought me here, I was like, this is where my roots need to be.
Yeah.
This is all things wild. It was exactly what I needed. So anyway, but yeah, when I was 11, like again, every witch knows when they are a witch. Sometimes they don't even need the books to really
Yeah.
get that answer.
True.
You know, they feel that power inside them and they use that power and it happens around them. Their intentions grow
Yep.
like seed. And that's just when you just know, either intuitively or literally around you, it is happening and you just know it. And so I guess in a way, I went to those libraries and I looked for those books to just gain more answers of how to nurture it,
Mm.
how to control it, and what more can I do with it? That's what I was really seeking, like trying to figure it out. And I mean, I went through a lot of books, but there's the two that really stuck out the most to me was Scott Cunningham,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Earth Power,
Okay.
and of course his encyclopedia of magical herbs.
Yes.
But but definitely Earth Power really stuck out to me, because it felt like it fit where my craft was going, which was very nature based. It wasn't exactly religious. I didn't feel like my practice was going to be very religious, not like Wicca, where a lot of the time at that time, primarily a lot of books were based off of Wicca.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And all respect to it, and it was wonderful to learn. I loved to see the religious aspects of where the craft could go. But I felt like I needed a lot more, I guess, freedom to it. And within Earth Power, I was able to really find that and where my true magical connection lies, which is in nature, within the elements and such. So, um, holding that book tight and keeping it to me, over those years, it helped me to embrace that connection more, to put more of my practice towards that. So I wonder if I answered all those
Yeah, no.
questions.
And would you say like I mean, at that early age, I haven't spoken to many people that early of an age were actually would consider themselves a practicing witch. Would you have considered yourself actually practicing at that time?
Oh
That's
yes, I was being told.
fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
love it.
I learned the most exciting, I can't even speak, hold on. The exciting aspects of spells and
Yeah.
also, the consequence, is that a word? The consequences of spells as well. So,
Yes.
you know, all
Or
the
to learn that at 11 years old or 12 years old, I feel like so many of us would have loved that experience because it would have, for me anyway, that would have stopped me from making a lot of stupid mistakes in my 20s. I'm just, you know what I mean?
oh,
It
it's
would have,
always a learning.
right,
It's
right. It would have stopped me
constantly
from being
learning.
like, wait, what? So I find that I find that really, really interesting. So for you, you describe yourself as practicing or finding wildcraft. And yet at the same time, we're talking about your first experiences with witchcraft, paganism, rituals, and things like that. For you, are these terms interchangeable, or would you define this? Because I love this phrase that you've coined, wildcraft. Would you define that for yourself or for others as different than most other witchcraft? With that natural element kind of wrapping around it, less esoteric and more nature based? Or what? Like how would you define that for yourself?
I don't feel that it's too far off or far different from witchcraft. If anything, I would probably hold that closely towards my religion. I
Mm-hmm.
guess I would say that that's the closest thing to religion I would compare it to.
Yep.
Nature, wild, that is my place of spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
my place of religion. And that is where I could truly connect to everything around me. And by crafting, I mean kind of like much like alchemy, when you work internally in connecting with yourself and empowering that, you are also connecting and empowering the elements around you, essentially the wildness around you.
Mm.
and in harmony and balance. And yeah.
I love that. I think too, sometimes we hear, the word wild when it comes to witchcraft, or, um, you know, people use the word a lot when dealing with, fairy magic or things like that, or herbalism or foraging or any of those type of deep earthy type magics. And sometimes people don't really understand what that means. And for me, the word means untouched, you know, where we are participating in nature. We are not facilitating that growth. We are not stunting that growth. It's the difference for me when I see it in my mind visually. It's the difference between, walking into a meadow of wildflowers versus, um, really beautiful, enjoying a beautiful rose garden where everything has been planted and manicured. Both of these
Yeah.
things are being in nature. Both of these things are special and spiritual and certainly beautiful, but the
Hmm.
energies of them are different because the
Yeah.
flowers in the field just showed up there. They are an anomaly of, birds dropping seeds and pollinators pollinating, and it's just made that way by
Exactly.
the earth and the cycles, right? Whereas the rose garden has been meticulously planned and cared for, and both beautiful. But in my mind, that is the difference between them.
Hmm.
And so the magics within these different spaces feel different,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So
It's the choice.
yeah, I love that. Just as you're talking about, the wildness of the spaces, and I'm looking out to my left is a sliding glass door. It leads out to my deck in my backyard. And there is birds everywhere, just, and I have like this manicured area, but then it goes into like just this wooded area. Right.
Hmm.
So to have both in the space and really be able to appreciate them, you just have my brain thinking now. And I just love that. So, so we fast forward and you work at this metaphysical shop and you're really getting into, making incenses and herbal remedies and, um, making those candles and learning all about that. Now, forgive me if I should know this, but would you classify yourself as an herbalist?
Well, not certified yet,
Excellent.
but
Excellent.
definitely I had to learn. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and people ask me that all the time. I'm like, I'm not an herbalist. I know how to use herbs. I know the medicinal qualities of them. But no, I could
Hmm.
not prescribe you something. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. No
no,
certificate.
no, exactly. Um, so you're really self-taught and taught by mentors and other people in the field, but not like you said, not certified in these herbal remedies and so forth. I really want to hear about these light bulb moments for you when you were working with the tea master, which I love, like the tea master. It feels like
I know.
there should be like, like thunder claps and stuff like that. I wonder, who was this person? How did you start working with them in detail? And, you know, what was something that maybe surprised you the most when you started learning about the history and the uses of tea?
Ooh, the surprising aspect might be tricky to express because, like, like you had described, the light bulb moment, it was kind of like a wow, this is all very connected.
Mm,
I guess that would be where my surprise was, where everything that I had learned in the metaphysical store wasn't quite, or even from learning about witchcraft and the practice, wasn't very different from the same spiritual aspects of tea and the respect that goes into it. You know, when when I first saw that store open up. It was a brand new store that opened in a new location near me. And I saw it and I was like, I need to be there. I need to work there. In fact, I even did a new job spell for
I
it.
love it.
And and lo and behold, a week later they hired me.
Wow.
Um, And she was well, first, the acupuncturist, she was Dr. Sora Lee, and she was a lovely woman who came from many other. I mean, honestly, these two individuals came from family who had either did some holistic care or did come from tea growing, like lands that grew tea.
Wow.
And so learning a lot about the holistic nature from the acupuncturist, she was amazing. Learning about Chinese medicine. And it, his name was Robert Lee also, and he was wonderful. He worked with the police academy as well. So he was kind of
Wow.
like a tea master, yes, which is true. There should be like
Yes.
lightning, more like maybe like bells
Right? Ding,
and
ding,
some
ding.
drums.
Yes.
But he was a very wise man who learned a lot from his own father and the father before them. And he basically showed me about the Chinese tea customs
Mm.
and practice of how to ceremonially prepare it, which was all intentions. And that's where it was like, ding, 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 wow, look at all these intentions.
Yeah.
To basically be mindful. It was a very mindful, meditative practice
Mhm.
of connecting to yourself and connecting to the present moment. And that another light bulb came on there where like they are being intentional of connecting with the present and with themselves and going in it seeking balance and wisdom and internal strength, you know, and well wishes, of course, to all who participated in the tea ceremony. So it was just, having to learn about the history of the Chinese customs, mostly about the tea ceremony itself, really, and was the beautiful experience of it all, and just kind of comparing it to other tea cultures, like the Japanese tea ceremony, and yes,
No, that's really special because most people don't get the opportunity to spend time learning
Mhm,
about other cultures at all, right? In any
mhm,
capacity, but specifically around the rituals of other cultures, right? So, the tea being such a ritual for, the Chinese and having that Chinese tea ritual. And like you said, being able to see how similar these practices are to the practices that you as an American witch follow and the intentionality and going, oh, we kind of do the same thing, you know. And I've had my own personal experiences with Chinese medicine and been like,
mhm.
wow, this why the fuck do we not do this? I don't what
Right?
like
I
literally
know.
like how are we're so stupid. Like why don't we not why can't we have both things? Why do we have to have one or the other? When you say, "Oh, I'm dealing with
Mhm.
some health stuff and I'm going to drink a tea for it." People are like, "Well, maybe you should see a real doctor." And I'm like, "Well,
Oh, I've heard that a lot.
maybe you need both things. Maybe you need a little bit of Eastern medicine, a little bit of Western medicine, or
Exactly.
none of one, or all of one, or, like we are whole beings. So to have this experience where we can learn how to service the whole being in a way through intention, ritual, and
Yes.
tea or food or whatever, it's just really special that you got to have that experience and learn hands on from someone who, like you said, is generationally, attuned to these processes. Like, wow, that's mind blowing.
Yes. Seriously. It was such an honor, honestly, because I was thinking to myself, well, I'm sure I can't remember if he had a son. No, no, he didn't. So it was really like wow, I'm happy you hired me, but man, what an honor to
Yeah.
be able to learn this. Like all of that you have learned from your own generations and your family. It's just beyond grateful.
Wow. And you've turned this into this love and these processes and these rituals not into just part of your own lifestyle, but this is now part of your career path and helping other people. So you've got this book out. Now maybe I have the Tea Witch's Grimoire,
Yeah.
and it's beautiful.
Thank
And
you. There's my baby.
it's really like it's a really sweet book, but then it has all this really powerful information and so much uh good good tea recipes and good rituals. And so we're going to take a quick break. When we get back from our break and hearing from our amazing sponsors, we're going to dive into this and your journey in writing it. Okay, so we'll be right back with SM Harlow. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We are back on Conversational Witchcraft with SM Harlow, and we are talking about her new book, which is actually a new edition of a previous book, A Tea Witch's Grimoire, which is awesome. It's just so awesome. So you were just telling me in the break that this is actually the second edition of a self-published book.
Yes, this is basically the original PT, which is
It's
Grimoire.
so cute though. And you self-published
Yeah,
that.
I did.
See, that's
It's
what's
just
important. People have to know that they can do things. Like, hey, you've got a great idea, self-publish, get it out there, get your ideas out there. And then what, Wiser came to you and was like, hey, this is awesome.
yes, exactly. One of them actually was given this book as a gift, and he went through it, and he's just like, "This is a really amazing book." He's never seen anything like it, and that's why he reached out to me saying, "Did you want to do a new edition of it?" And I said, "Actually, yeah, I was working on a new
Yeah,
edition, technically a new edition, but I mean, it was going to be a second one, but I was going to do like a 2.0 version where it had much more about the practice and much more tips and rituals and spells of
right.
what you can do."
Because
So,
it's not just recipes for tea, right?
yeah.
It's recipes for tea, but it's also rituals. It's also, you get into like things for your zodiac sign, like, which I think is very unique in a book about tea. And then also like teas for different times during the wheel of the year. Like, how are we, what flavors, what herbs, what things should we be using in our teas to celebrate the turning of the wheel? Which for me, I'm very seasonal in my practice. So that is really important. So, first of all, how does this differ from the original? And, what was, how did you feel when you got that call? Like, did you just jump out of your skin?
Yes. So the original, it was basically meant to just be recipes. Just all of my recipes that I've taken from my grimoire that I have brought together over the years. Because I was always getting so many questions from different friends and
Hmm.
acquaintances saying, "Oh, what tea do you use for this? What tea do you use for that?" And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should go ahead and write a recipe book with all of them and just kind of put it out there and see what happens. And it really did turn out that way. I just put it out there. And in fact, it was only supposed to be an ebook. And I had wonderful friends encourage it to just be like, no, get a paperback. And I was like, okay, let's try it out. And yes, and it honestly was an amazing, surprisingly success over the year that it was out there. And when I got the message, it was a message rather than a call, but when I got the message at first, I was just like, is this real? Really? Are you alive? Let me look you up.
Like, who's joking? This is somebody trying to sell me something. That can't possibly be real.
Exactly. Yeah. It
I
was
know.
on Instagram, so I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally
There's
get
some
that.
Instagram weirdos.
I know, like, I get these
So,
people sending me messages on Instagram all the time. They're like, we think you'd be a perfect fit for our jewelry line. And I'm like, no. So you're going, oh
absolutely.
my God, somebody wants me to revamp this book. So you started adding the rituals and all of the spell work to the recipes. Like, how did that, how did you make the jump from what you had to what it has become?
Well, actually, in my personal grimoire, the rituals, all these that you find in this book, were there already.
Oh,
All the
wow.
recipes in this original book was a part of those rituals. And I had decided when I did this one that everyone has their own practice. Everyone usually does it the way that they feel is right
Mhm.
within them, you know, and I wanted it to be very flexible, very open for anyone who wanted to do a certain way, but use the tea recipe to kind of add to that, to be able to do that, to feel comfortable enough to do it their way.
Mhm.
And when like about a year after this book was published, I started having some people like ask me questions like, well, what kind of ritual or spell do you do with it?
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, I, I always came forward with, well, you know, you do it how you feel is right.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there are people who do prefer having it kind of like written out for them to just add to that knowledge, add to the experience so that they can practice it. And that's why I was like, okay, well, you know what? If I'm going to do a new one, I'll add that
Mhm.
so that people can practice and see the results that they get from it. But you will see throughout this new edition how I will still say, trust your intuition,
Yeah.
do it your way, and let this practice, let your craft grow to
Yeah.
how to which best reflects who you are as a witch.
Yeah.
So it's always been guidelines.
Always guidelines. I love that so much. So tell us something that most people don't know about tea or how to use tea, um, that, is something that you wish people would ask you. Like, what do you wish people would ask you about tea that they don't ask you or they don't know?
Hmm. Okay. Some people think that the ritual or the spell itself begins when you drink your cup, when you drink your tea. But I've always said, or I believe, that the whole ritual itself happens the moment you enter your space to make your tea. From starting your tea kettle to choosing your herbs to choosing the right vessel, mug, teacup, teapot, spoon, all the tools that you use, and from when the kettle whistles and draws away all the negativity to brewing the tea and seeing that steam rise and pouring it into your faithful cup and drinking it. All of that whole process is the spell, is the ritual itself that people forget to connect, to be mindful of
Mm,
that whole process.
absolutely. That starts when you make the decision to do the work,
Hmm.
right? It starts at that moment. And then because every one of those steps, when done mindfully, is ritual.
Your intention begins there.
I love that
And
so much.
yeah, people forget sometimes about that, you know, when leading up to doing a spell, it's all about the intention and it happens at the very beginning. You're
And I
literally
think
bringing
too,
something up.
people don't really understand, especially in America, we don't really, when we think about tea, when we think about black tea, it's, Lipton in a box. And then when we think about, anything else, it's like, I don't know. I mean, obviously not me, but like I can't even give an example of an herbal tea that I would that people would think about, but that's what people think about. At least most mainstream people are going to think tea, Lipton tea in a box. Like that's not a thing. And like at this point, Lipton tea or things like that commercially grown, they have all kinds of problems. They're stripped down, they're chemical washed. By the time they
Mhm.
get into your cup, they're not even really tea anymore. But tea isn't just tea leaves, it's herbal, it could be fresh, it could be right. You can make tea, like I make a brew out of fresh ginger, fresh turmeric,
Mm.
honey, and a
Yeah.
cinnamon stick. right?
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
don't, would you qualify that as tea?
Yes. Yes.
Because
I mean,
I
it
call it
has,
a tonic because it's not tea leaves or dried herbs, but like you would call that tea, right?
yeah, I would. If it's brewed, yes. But you could call it how you wish. It does sound like a tonic, definitely.
But that's what I'm saying. Like people wouldn't think of those things. And I think what you're
Mhm.
doing is you're broadening the mind and you're broadening the horizons of not just people that are in the witchcraft community, but people that maybe just enjoy a good cup of tea. People tend to be like, well, I'm a coffee drinker, I'm a tea drinker. Right? Do you get that a lot?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
People
Oh,
are like, I don't
yes.
drink tea, I drink coffee. And you're like, well, I don't drink coffee, I
Uh-huh.
drink tea. Um, but I think because people don't know what they don't know about tea, right?
Mhm. Yes, all of the amazing things that can become, like what it can be used for, people forget that. Like, for example, like the magical correspondences behind any of the herbs that you choose, what that can be used for, how
Mhm.
that can be utilized in this practice.
And
But the same goes for coffee.
I mean, listen, I am a coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon person. I fucking love my coffee. And I would die without, I need it to survive. And that's anybody who knows me personally will know that's 100% true. Um, but I really love tea as well. But I tend not to drink tea as much for pleasure. You know,
Mm,
sometimes I want a cup of tea for pleasure in the afternoon where I want a black tea. I need a little caffeine boost. I like the taste and whatever. But I tend to use tea more magically and more medicinally,
yes.
right? I've had been fighting a headache for like 3 days. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have a cup of headache tea. I need to get a good night's sleep. I'm going to have my lavender and chamomile and peppermint, which I make before I go to bed.
Mhm.
I have what I brew myself is what I call Be Well tea, and I make it every around Samhain. I make a big container of it, and it's
Oh.
nettle, peppermint, elderberry,
Mhm.
eucalyptus. Um,
Mhm. Oh,
I
that
think,
sounds
and sometimes I
wonderful.
put milk thistle, and sometimes I don't. But it's so like antioxidant, and I'll drink that throughout the season, right? So that's how I use tea as a witch who drinks coffee. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm. It's so flexible, it can be incorporated into your life no matter what preferences you have,
Right.
you know,
Do
and it
you
can
have a
be,
favorite?
oh, oh.
I know. It's impossible, right? Okay, better question. Do you have a favorite right now? So, like, as we're recording this is mid-January, though this episode isn't going to air for quite a few weeks. But as we're recording this, it's mid-January. It's just after New Year's. So, what is the tea witch drinking at this time of year?
Ooh. Well, I have loved, and it always comes to me when I know it's a time where I need to balance myself and kind of gain a little bit more clarity. I love Gaba Oolong.
What is Gaba Oolong?
It's a type of oolong that has been um, specifically harvested and and processed in a way that activates the GABA chemical within the tea leaves. GABA is a chemical that we naturally produce in our brains that basically helps us think clearly, um, feel good with our moods, um, helps fight depression or anxiety, or helps with our cholesterol and all the other good health benefits, basically. And oftentimes, as we get older, that GABA kind of decreases. So, this GABA oolong in particular is supposed to help kind of give that back. It can penetrate the brain wall and give you that GABA that has been decreased to kind of help. I know you're like, where has this been?
Yeah, but this is one of those things, like, this is what people don't know.
Mhm.
This is the kind of thing that people don't know, that oolong tea leaves processed in a certain way can literally improve your brain function for happiness and focus. Like,
Yes,
what?
yes.
Right, where
And
I'm over
I
here
actually found
chugging coffee to get that same feeling, and it's just fake,
uh-huh.
you know, it's just fooling my brain with the stimulant to make it think it's focused and happy. Where the
Well,
GABA is actually, the oolong is actually creating this in your body. That's fucking amazing.
mhm. I discovered this oolong when I was working at Cha, which was the acupuncture tea room. And that's exactly what they said to me. They're like, recommend this or drink this in the morning to take out coffee, to help remove the brain fog, get you pepped up naturally, and it will stay with you throughout the day. And it also, I have found that it has helped with my mood, any kind of anxieties, any
Wow.
kind of energy loss. Yeah, and it's wonderful. As well as oolong, magically speaking, is really good for mental awareness, for like
Mhm.
um for the psychic abilities, for grounding, for bringing clarity and and protection. So it's really good to kind of incorporate the two to help with the actual physical needs as well as the magical needs. So
Wow.
usually when I'm like doing, for example, like any kind of tarot or tea leaf readings, I usually go for the oolong to kind of help. So
Wow. Wow,
mhm.
that's really incredible. And I mean, I've had oolong. I wouldn't say that oolong is a favorite for me. Like I said, I like black tea, but I love herbal teas. Things that aren't caffeinated, but they're very soothing. And even if I'm gonna have something iced or cold, I tend to like herbal and fruity and minty and things like that. Oolong is not something that I love. Rooibos is not something that I love, just on my palate. But that doesn't
Yeah,
mean I'm not going to use it if I'm doing a particular spell recipe,
right.
right? If I
Hmm.
need like, there are foods I don't love too, but sometimes I need to use them in a recipe for a particular purpose,
Hmm.
for a particular magical outcome. But I didn't know that about oolong. That's freaking amazing. And so
Yeah,
now what's
look up Gaba.
GABA? I literally wrote it down. What's so cool too is how you're taking, and if we can just, just step away just for a minute. And I know we're supposed to be talking about your book, but like, it's so cool that you're taking your witchcraft and your knowledge of tea and you're pursuing to become a naturopathic doctor with
Hmm.
all of this information. Like, can you just talk really quickly about how those things dovetail together, and what you hope to accomplish for patients and for readers with this added knowledge?
Well, I always have wholeheartedly believed, much like my grandmother believed, that your health is connected to your spirituality. When you bring both into balance, it brings your life into balance, and it will create wholeness, health, vitality. And and I went into the path of studying to become a doctor of naturopathy in with uh, kind of a sad story, but I was inspired to go along it because I wanted to bring better health for women.
Mm,
Um,
it's important.
and yeah, and and basically trying to in the future create a practice where it brings both of those things: holistic medicine, holistic care, and spiritual balance and awareness.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm hoping for it to join in and lead towards, to create more women's circles where there is a way to find that inner awareness, that inner balance, and as well as being able to see someone to holistically care for them and go about it in that way. So that's my hopes. Those are my dreams to go about that. and hopefully maybe in the future to create like a type of retreats of that nature.
Wow. How wonderful. Like, it's very aspirational and needed. I mean, it is needed. For those of us who have had experiences with our health, and the only people that will listen to us is a naturopathic doctor or holistic practitioner. Um, that's happened to myself. That's happened to a bunch of friends of mine, specifically women. When you go into a regular doctor's office or your regular general practitioner, and they look at you and they go, well, they look at me and they go, well, you're fat, lose weight. And I'm like, that's not
Yeah.
that's not what's happening. There's something systemically going on. And they're like, well, you're fat. If you just lose weight, then you'll be fine. And I'm like, not so much. And then you go into a holistic practitioner and they go, oh, well, yeah, you have celiac
Mhm.
disease and you have this and you have this and you have this. And if you're able to, do these things and change your diet and add these things, you're going to feel better. And you're like, whoa,
Exactly. They
whoa,
actually create a plan for you, a preventative
correct.
plan to kind of help, or a balancing plan. Yes.
Correct. What I always feel is that missing spiritual piece. I've seen quite a few natural doctors in my time, and I definitely feel like that spiritual piece, like they
Mhm.
get it, but only to a point. And then I'll be like, oh, but yeah, but you're asking me to do this, but did you know that this also has these spiritual things? So this makes sense. And they're like, whatever, like that missing piece. I think, Susanna, you're really going to help so many people by bringing these two things together, and then your knowledge of tea and the healing properties and the energetic properties of the teas that you could recommend to people. I mean, that's amazing. How many people come up to you now and are like, oh, this thing, I have a stomach ache, what do you recommend, with the
Ah.
tea? So many, right? Everybody, every
Um,
friend.
a handful, but not too much. You know, being out in the woods now has had helped with that.
Well, now you're the witch in the woods, and people are going to have to seek you out for your tea blends. That's really what it is. Um, SM Harlow, Susanna, you're amazing. And the book is called A Tea Witch's Grimoire, and it's through Wiser. So can you tell us where to find you, how to follow you online, and where to order this wonderful book?
Mhm. Well, you can find me in most social media platforms. I'm pretty much all out there. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, all pretty much under the same name, the Tea Witch blog. That's also my blog you can find online, theteawitchblog.com. On Facebook, it's a little different. It's SM Harlow Books, and you can find this book pretty much in most major stores, either on Amazon or in Barnes and Noble, Books a Million. There are some wonderful online metaphysical stores that also have it too. I've been getting screenshots all over the place showing that. So
I love it.
I hope you find it.
Yeah, and at your local bookstores, local metaphysical shops, you can walk in and just ask them to order it for you directly from the publisher, which is also great. So okay, we have one last question to ask you. I ask this to every guest that comes on the show. And this is what we close out with. So it might be, I'm always interested to hear what people say when they're already like kitcheny, cookie kind of people that work their magics in the kitchen. So if you could have me as a kitchen witch make you one magical meal, what would it be and why?
Oh my gosh. Well, my first thought was soup. I want soup.
Soup. What
Yes, I
kind
just
of
want.
soup?
Oh, like probably. Oh no, that's so hard.
First thing that comes to your head.
I guess the beef stew meats, like a really hearty potato, carrot, and
Oh my God.
beef.
I don't want to tell you what I
Oh,
just made. Like I literally just made this.
oh,
I had this idea and I came out like I developed this recipe out of this idea that I had literally like 2 days ago. So I caramelized all these onions way,
mm,
way down, way, way down, caramelized them way, way down until
just
nothing.
bit my lip.
And then I set them aside and then I seared the beef. It's brisket and then added all my
Oh,
mirepoix and then I put the caramelized onions back in and the potatoes and all the herbs and spices and everything. And I literally let it simmer for like 7 hours. I don't like beef stew, but I had this craving and I was like, I really want to try this. It was like a braised beef onion soup deliciousness. That's what I would make you.
That sounds so
I'm not
with
gonna
some
it,
like French
French,
bread and just
yes, yes. It was so, so good. So I'm like, I do this all the time. I'll develop a recipe and then it'll show up in a book down the road. So when it shows up in a book somewhere, I will make sure that you get a copy and you can make it. Cause if you're ever up here, you can come here and I will make it for you. But, yeah, you would love it. It was so good. And I can't believe out of everything in the world that you could have asked for, you said the thing I just made. Like, that's
I felt
crazy.
it. Felt
You're
it.
fantastic. Thank you so
I
much
told
for
you we're
being
cousins.
right. Kind of like I make the food, you make the tea. It feels symbiotic. I thought you were going to say tea cakes, right? Like that I would make you like this beautiful, like high tea and do like finger sandwiches and
Aww.
tea
Oh,
cakes and
tea party.
right. Throw a tea party and you would make the tea and I would make the food and it would be like, we'd have to wear fancy hats, but
Of course.
right.
Next
Um,
time.
right. But I love that you chose beef stew. That's fantastic. Um, thank you so much for being here. The book is The Tea Witch's Grimoire, and this is SM Harlow. Thank you so much. And look forward to what you do next and to dive in a little bit deeper and make some beautiful tea, especially this winter. I'm very excited to get a little bit further into your work and learn more because it's something I don't know a lot about. So thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
being here. It was wonderful to have you.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And definitely there's another book on the way that will should be very interesting. So yes,
Excited,
but
excited.
thank you.
Until next time, everyone, I wish you so many blessings and so much gratitude.